Coming up tonight on the news at 5. Governor-elect Greg Gianforte talks cabinet and COVID-19 1 week ahead of his swearing in. Plus,
I was really glad that we got to go back and be in person for the majority of the semester.
Great Falls students and staff reflect on the challenges of the fall semester.
From Montana's news leader, this is MTN News at 5.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the News at 5. I'm Marian Davidson. Thanks for joining us. Well, only 1 week remains until Republican Greg Gianforte is sworn in as Montana's 25th governor, the first Republican governor in the Big Sky state in 16 years. He'll be taking over in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic and with the legislature firmly controlled by his own party. Today, Gianforte spoke with reporters about the status of filling out his new administration and plans for tackling the pandemic and the economy going forward. MTN Chief Political Reporter Mike Dennison has the latest.
Governor-elect Gianforte, speaking via the internet to reporters, said the number one issue for Montana is tackling the COVID-19 pandemic, and that he'll be announcing new guidelines next week once he takes office. He wouldn't say what he's considering, but seemed to indicate that some restrictions in place now could be relaxed.
I've always said that the decisions we make on January 4th and beyond need to be based on the facts on the ground at that point. I would point out that we've seen a precipitous drop in the rate of the number of new infections per day. That's encouraging to me.
He did say he'll be wearing a mask in the Capitol and getting a vaccine when it becomes available to him. But he said repeatedly that Montanans should have the freedom to make their own decisions on protecting themselves and others.
I think with freedom comes responsibility, and I trust Montanans to make the right decisions for themselves and the people around them. Again, we'll get through this together.
On his cabinet, Gianforte so far has named only one nominee out of a dozen state agency heads that he must appoint. He said it's taken time to go through a crush of qualified applicants and that he'll unveil more, but not all of them, this week.
Well, I'm well over half of the 12 have been offered and accepted. We're just in the process of getting those packaged up so we can get them out to you and share the details. But I would also say that from my career of building teams, it's important. The most important thing is having the right person in the chair, not just filling a chair.
And finally, when asked about legislative priorities, Gianforte said it's outlined in his Montana comeback plan, but he cautioned that next year's budget may be tight.
I said to both the majority and the minority, if they have ideas that are consistent with that comeback plan, we're going to be supportive. As long as they fit in the overall package. We do have constraints, fiscal constraints, which is going to make it difficult for a lot of new spending.
As the incoming governor said, don't expect much in the way of surprises. He'll be trying to enact what he promised during the campaign, a more frugal and conservative state government. Reporting from Helena, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
Gianforte will be sworn in next Monday at a ceremony at the Capitol that will be streamed on Facebook. All right, now it's time for a check of our forecast with Andy Curtis, who is in this evening for Curtis Grevenitz. Andy?
Yeah. Thanks, Mary. Not a lot going on out there tonight, and really not a lot going on out there for the rest of the weekend. Coincidentally, the rest of 2020. Here's a look right now at a pretty boring map of Montana. Just a little bit of action up there south of Cut Bank, but that really isn't a whole lot. Tons of action, though, at Great Falls. Not Great Falls, Great Divide. Threw me for a second there, because I guess maybe everybody's heading home right now. There was a few people out there earlier today, and even though we didn't get a ton of snow dumped on us this past weekend, and we really won't be getting a ton of snow this week, always a good time to go up and ski, because you can see there is certainly snow up at Great Divide right now. So we've got a mild week ahead of us. Temperatures in the 30s and 40s to end 2020, and we might even get into the high 40s, low 50 range this weekend in some spots. In other spots, just a slight chance of snow. I'll tell you more about that coming up next.
Now taking a look at the state's COVID-19 situation. COVID-19 deaths continue to climb in Montana, even as active cases and hospitalizations fall to levels not seen in months. Local and state numbers show 12 additional deaths, raising the statewide death total to 974, while active cases have fallen to around 5,400. Active cases have not been that low since early October. Active hospitalizations have dropped to 213, and active hospitalizations were more than twice that during mid-November and early December. Well, the first full semester amid the pandemic is nearly in the books for area schools. Tonight, we take a look back at how that semester went for Great Falls Public Schools. MTN's Coulter Anstat reports.
From March 15 through today, I would describe the educational environment as disjointed for students.
Great Falls Public Schools Superintendent Tom Moore says while the fall semester and the last half of the spring semester earlier this year may have been disjointed, they weren't all bad.
I would say we have been successful under the circumstances in addressing the remote learning situation, the temporary remote when people are quarantined or isolated, or when we have to close schools temporarily. I think we're getting better at that. And then working with our staff and our teachers to get through those times that are real tough and stressful.
Mid-year evaluations are planned to get feedback from parents, students, and faculty.
I think it's going to probably be across the board. I think that for some people it's working very well. For others it's a struggle.
CMR High School senior Madison George says the fall semester has been a good experience so far.
I was really glad that we got to go back and be in person for the majority of the semester. Since it's my senior year, I was really grateful to be back at school with some sense of normalcy, even with all the masks and social distancing.
She says the transition to 2 weeks of remote learning leading up to Thanksgiving was smoother than the transition to remote learning in the spring, and the remote learning itself wasn't difficult.
At CMR, we didn't have any requirements to check in every day, so I think that made it easier on a lot of families. Students didn't have to sit on the computer for 8 hours. They were able to check in, do their assignments, and kind of work at their own pace.
Overall, she now feels better prepared for the next semester amid the pandemic than she did at the beginning of the current semester. In Great Falls, Coulter Anstat, MTN News.
And you can check out the full interview with the superintendent in this story on our website, ktvh.com. Well, Great Falls firefighters continue to investigate tonight after an early morning mobile home fire. Firefighters responded to the home in the 5400 block of Lower River Road around 8 a.m. When they arrived, the home was fully up in flames, but they were able to put out the blaze quickly. Neighbors say they called 911 after people outside alerted them to the fire.
We honestly thought there was a fight about to happen, so we started hollering at them. Then I look over at my neighbor's house and you just see a big old barrel of smoke coming out of the top of the house, and then you just see flames kind of coming from the windows, and then you just saw people running around breaking windows.
Well, no word on what sparked the blaze yet. The situation is still under investigation. And now that President Donald Trump has signed the massive government funding package, Montana breweries and distilleries will get some much needed tax relief. The Craft Beverage Modernization and Tax Reform Act makes a reduced tax rate on small brewers and distillers permanent. Senators John Tester and Steve Daines co-sponsored the bill and supported adding it to the year-end spending deal. The lower rate was put in place 3 years ago and was set to expire January 1st. The Montana Brewers Association says its 45 members would have had to pay a total of $800,000 more in taxes without an extension. Leaders say local breweries have already been hit hard by lower taproom sales, and a tax hike would have been disastrous for them. And when we come back, Andy Curtis will have a complete check of your forecast in STORMTRACKER weather, and later, a look at the challenges facing rural hospitals as they fight the COVID-19 pandemic.
Welcome back, everybody. Andy Curtis filling in for Curtis Grevenance tonight, taking a look at Great Falls. Temperature's not so bad, actually, right now. 32 degrees, so right at the freezing mark. Feels a little cooler than that. 23 degrees right now is what you would claim it felt like if you walked outside, and I test you to do that. If you think it feels 22 degrees, email curtisgrevenance@ktvh.com. Winds not too bad, 13 miles per hour, so actually a pretty calm day around Great Falls with wind that slow. Down in the Helena area, 24 degrees and a whole lot cooler than that. Feels like 17 degrees around the capital city and wind almost non-existent. So actually a pretty calm day statewide today, which is very nice. I think today overall was pretty good. Good amount of sunshine, temperature is very decent, and wind calm in Cut Bank. calm in Kalispell, 5 miles per hour in Havre, Lewistown 5 miles per hour. And if you need any more proof that today was calm, take a look down at Livingston. It's only 9 miles per hour right there in Livingston. So, you know, it's a pretty good day. And as we head forward, that wind really won't be creeping up too much at all tomorrow as well. You can see a little bit up around the Rocky Mountain front, but, you know, that's really just business as usual. And in fact, looking pretty calm up around that area for the most part tomorrow. And the rest of us, Havre not looking bad, Great Falls, we're looking good there. Helena looking pretty calm tomorrow, getting a little windy in Cutbank as the day progresses and Tuesday becomes Wednesday. That wind will start to pick up in all the usual areas. Great Falls, creeping into Havre, of course, Cutbank, and then back along the Rocky Mountain front, getting into the Purple Range, which, as you can see, means we're closing in on 60 miles per hour, topping out at 60 miles per hour in some areas up there. Of course, it won't be widespread, but that wind will be picking up Wednesday into Thursday, and it's going to be, you know, just a typical windy gusts in the 20s and 30s around Great Falls Wednesday and Thursday, so into New Year's Eve. Right now, temperature's not too bad, 34 in Lewistown, 16 in Havre, Cutbank, 21 degrees, like we saw 32 and 24 in Helena and Great Falls. So we're in the 20s and low 30s, getting to be a little chillier out there, very typical weather for once this month as we close out December and 2020. And as you can see on the radar, things are also going to be very calm and downright boring for the next couple of days. Tuesday, just some cloud cover, a little bit of snow, maybe a drop or two, a flake or two up in the higher elevations Tuesday. But Tuesday, nothing's going on. And Wednesday, the next just hint of some weather moving in up there around Kalispell, coming over the northwestern part of the state. That's it for this week, because that won't even get that far. Creeping in and popping up in the higher elevations is really all we're expecting coming into Montana this week as we close out 2020. 7-day forecast for Great Falls tomorrow, 34, wind almost non-existent, but then Wednesday and Thursday, New Year's Eve, that wind starts to pick back up again, but temperatures aren't looking too bad, and we're even close to 50 degrees on Saturday and Sunday in the Electric City. And that in Helena, 31 degrees tomorrow. Wind kind of all over the place, but still not too bad. Picks up on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, though, not looking bad at all. Calm, relatively warm, and some sun throughout the day.
All right, thanks, Andy. Rural hospitals are in a difficult spot right now. COVID-19 is hitting them harder than many metropolitan hospitals, and staffing is far lower. Dire situations start to arise once some of those limited staff members start getting COVID-19 themselves. Dan Grossman reports.
When the time comes to look back on what we've been able to accomplish,
as you can tell, I've led a very eclectic life.
Most would only hope to have a resume as diverse as that of Kurt Papenfuss.
The boys got to meet, the Pope. One of my claims to fame is giving a Rambo a shot in the butt.
There was also Everest, spending time with Neil Armstrong, and most recently, going toe-to-toe with COVID-19, a battle that left Kurt alone in an ICU for 9 days.
There's a darkness in this illness that I can't say I've ever said about any other illness.
Being the only ER doc at a rural hospital in Colorado, it was a fight Kurt was all too familiar with, and one that affected far more than just himself.
Worst case scenario, you would have to divert patients if you don't have people in the door to care.
Stella Worley is the CEO of Keefe Memorial, the 25-bed hospital where Kurt works along the Colorado-Kansas border. Kurt's illness sent her unit into a tailspin as they frantically looked for his replacement.
We are a trauma level 4 hospital, so keeping that physician on staff 24/7 is what we are required to do, and it is getting to be more of a challenge to have hired physicians out here in rural.
According to the National Center for Biotechnology Information, about 20% of our nation's population lives in rural areas, yet less than 10% of our nation's physicians practice there. It is a shortage that has plagued rural healthcare since even before COVID. For Stella, it meant a search for an ER doc that ended with a fill-in who had to drive 10 hours from Texas last minute to cover for 2 weeks while Kurt recovered.
And I'm very worried about rural healthcare, because a lot of rural healthcare is teetering on the brink right now.
According to CDC data, COVID is killing rural Americans at a rate 3.5 times higher than those living in metropolitan areas, bringing this issue to a head.
If everybody wants to do a miracle, just sit down right now with me and take a big breath in and a big breath out.
An issue that has led Kurt to see more of life's beauty outside of his eclectic experiences.
If you're recovering from COVID like I am and almost died, you just appreciate a light bulb on a Christmas tree.
I'm Dan Grossman reporting.
Well, people seemed to be more comfortable when it came to traveling for the holidays. The Transportation Security Administration says about 1.3 million people passed through airport security checkpoints on Sunday. That surpassed the previous high for the year set last Wednesday. It is also the highest level of air travel seen since March 15th. Now, despite the high number of people traveling through the airport, it's still about half the number of people who flew that same day a year ago. And coming up next on the News at 5, the Montana East-West Shrine Game roster is out. We'll talk with some of the players who made the cut.
As news leader, you're watching MTN News at 5.
Welcome back to the News at 5. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. Well, it's a Christmas tradition unlike any other. The Montana East-West Shrine Game roster announcement. MTN's Sam Hoyle caught up with a few local players on the roster.
The rosters for the Montana East-West Shrine Game, one of the longest-running all-star high school football games in the country, were released Christmas Day, with players ranging across all 4 classes. In Helena, Zachary Evans and Tyler Little were 2 of the players selected to play for the West. For Evans, a Montana Grizz football commit who stayed up until midnight when the rosters were released online, seeing his name on the roster was a gratifying experience after years of hard work.
I was super excited. I was more proud of me than I ever have really before this game, because I've always wanted to do it, always be in part of this game. So it was a really proud moment of myself.
Little, a Montana Tech commit, found out at a similar time, but in a completely different fashion.
I was playing video games and my mom came up and she's like, "What do you have to say for yourself?" And I was like, "What?" I didn't know what she was talking about, and then she told me.
Though Little's reaction was one you'd expect from anyone wrapped up in a video game.
I was like, "Nice." That's pretty much all I said. I was really tired, and I just asked if my friend made it, and she said yeah. So I was happy.
That friend being Chayton Winkle, who's also excited to match up against the best of the best in Montana with his good buddy.
It's awesome. I mean, I've been playing with him since small fry, and we're really, really close, so it's going to be awesome.
On the East team, another Montana Tech commit in Fort Benton's Jace Thompson. Thompson said the game will be a good opportunity to get used to 11-man football before he heads off to college.
I think it's a great opportunity to have and go out there and prove something, get used to 11-man, since I'll be playing that in college, and I think it's a really good opportunity for me going into college football.
Also on the East team is Ethan DeRouche, a multi-time state champ on the wrestling mats, also showing he's a prolific defensive lineman. And though he's still a multi-time state title winner on the mat, the accomplishment of making the Shrine Game roster stacks up nicely.
Excited, wasn't really expecting it, but when I found out, I was like, whoa. I mean, I'm very honored to play in it.
Though the rosters were announced on Christmas Day, these players will have to wait a little bit longer to toe the gridiron one last time in their high school career when the Montana East-West Shrine Game kicks off in Billings on July 19th, 2021. For MTN Sports, I'm Sam Hoyle.
All right, we'll wrap up the News at 5 when we come back, but first, here's Craig Melvin with a look ahead at what is on Nightly News.
Ahead for us, a final attempt in Congress to raise stimulus relief payments to $2,000, and a COVID passport may soon be coming right to your phone. Those stories and much more tonight on Nightly News.
As news leader, you're watching MTN News at 5.
Welcome back. Today is National Chocolate Candy Day, but really shouldn't every day be Chocolate Candy Day? Now, a little history about the sweet treat. Chocolate has been around for at least 3 millennia, according to National Calendar Day. Now, it was used in beverages up until 1828, when a Dutch inventor and chemist developed a way to make chocolate in a solid form. And then, in 1842, the first box of chocolate was made. Now, 5 years later, in 1847, sugar was added to create the popular chocolate treats we know and love today. And now, Americans consume 12 pounds of chocolate each year, which I think seems like a low estimate, or maybe that's just me.
Taking a look at our 7-day forecast for the Helena area, fairly mild and calm except on Wednesday. Then for our next holiday, New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, looking pretty good out there. A lot of clouds, but temperature's not too bad and pretty calm in the Helena area. Great Falls, warmer. We're going to be into the 40s, but a little windier Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
All right, thanks for making us part of your evening. NBC Nightly News is up next.